Welcome everybody to the meeting of the Management Research Committee meeting, 10th of October 2025. Should make a hat there.
Yeah, I do.
Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Almighty and ever-living God, in whose hands and rights and hopes of all people, look graciously on us who govern, guide us so that our counsels may be wise in your decisions.
Amen.
Amen. We've got an apology from Alan Birchfield. He's very unwell. He's been in bed for 3 days. Any other apologies? Declarations of interest?
Yeah, I'll move that.
Oh, moving the
Second that.
Second. Right. Declarations of interest. Declaration of interest. Number 4. Confirmation of the minutes. Take that everybody's read the room. For the 2nd of September. The recommendation of the committee resolves to confirm the minutes of the Resource Committee meeting held on the 6th of September. True and correct. You got a mover, Andy? Steve, Chris? Anyone to come out of the meeting minutes? Anyone pretty good? Move on to the actions list. Action point 1 to determine the timeline for the review and update the flood protection bylaw. It's ongoing. And 2, investigate the delegation at the recent district council regarding the mining operations laws issues. Ongoing. We're waiting on them. Action point 3, arrange a workshop with interested parties and the consents compliance team to collaborate on the agreed conditions for processing illegal gold mine consents, which is ongoing. Hopefully we get onto that. Straight away.
Can I just add on that action, Mr. Chairman, just and Chair had it. There is a regular catch up on a quarterly basis with Patrick Felch from the Northwest Coast, and that's this afternoon or tomorrow, and tend to bring that issue up there. Thanks.
Through the chair too, I note that the those draft conditions were sent out to all councillors and picked the party for comments, and I know I commented, but I didn't see too many responses. Others, how many came in?
No, through the chair, there were no other. Yes. Okay.
I read them. That'll probably go right away.
Thanks.
Reports, environmental science. I'll move the actions list.
Yeah.
Chris Cole. Environmental science quality report.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is just our general quarterly report. This is reporting against June to the end of September 2025, so the first quarter of the financial year. As you've seen, there's quite a lot in there. There's been quite a lot going on in the environmental science space, but the key highlights there are one, undertaking the first detailed assessment of estuaries in the region, which is a really cool piece of work, and the preliminary results are suggesting that our estuaries are in pretty good health, which is great. So no contaminants are being found in those, although we don't have the full results from our sediment testing, and it's likely to be a potential issue in some of these estuaries. So we'll put through a full scientific report at the end of that project, but just wanted to give council a bit of an update on what was going on there. We also undertook fecal source tracking in Orowaiti Lagoon. So there's always been a bit of a cholite issues in this catchment, which council should be pretty well aware of. Bulla District Council working to improve some cross-connection issues. But we're also exploring that there is a potential that septic tanks are contributing to some of that E. coli contamination as well. Complementary shellfish testing showed no norovirus, which is great, suggesting human contamination is present but at low levels. So that tracking actually tells us where the E. coli is coming from. Is it people? Is it ruminants? Or is it avian? And we are seeing all of those come up in the results. Quite a lot going in the air monitoring space as well, being winter. So Greymouth recorded no particulate matter at PM10 breaches, so that is good news. However, we did have several breaches of the World Health Organization guidelines of the particulate matter 2.5. And we had 2 breaches in Reefton, which council is already aware of as well, which means that that gazetted airshed will need to be monitored for a further 5 years. In the hydrology space, we've taken an independent review of our telemetry and radio networks, which is great. So we'll get you guys a full report on that, which will say this is what we need to do to make sure that our network is really resilient and our communities get the early flood warning that they need during events. Basically, we're just trying to make sure that there's lots of backup. So if a site goes down, like we see at some of these sites up at Mokanui, then we've got a backup way of getting data from there. We've also done a lot of work going out into the community. The SOE seminars, we've done 6. The 7th is tomorrow in Franz Joseph. Unfortunately, we did have to cancel Haast due to a funeral happening that day, but we're still getting down to Westland to talk to the Franz Joseph community and doing a lot of work in the flood manual review as well with the district council. So we've done Bray, Westland and Bulla now. And the next step will just be incorporating all their feedback and making sure that we're partnering with them well. There's lots of opportunity to sort of share the way that we manage our data with those councils to make sure that they're getting as much value out of it as they can. So that's a really cool opportunity and some good collaborations happening there as well. There are several recommendations, mainly just noting some of the findings of the work that we've been doing and some of the results that we've found in air quality and the improvements in the flood warning function. So happy to take questions.
Chris?
Just on the Reefton one, and 50 micro is the threshold.
Yeah. And
the one of them was 53, was just over. How accurate are the instruments? Can they be like as much 5%?
Very accurate. They're very, very high quality machines. And you're allowed to have an exceedance once, but because we've had an exceedance twice, that means that we've so that's kind of the
53 is just an exceedance, isn't it?
Yeah. But it is important to know that we have also exceeded the 2.5 several times, which is the World Health Organization standard.
And are you getting the same exceedances at the school site that you're getting at the other site? Because sometimes it could be a bit site specific.
It is site specific. So the legislation requires that we measure air quality at the worst area. So we are only getting exceedances at that one site.
And then the other one, the Orowaiti, I noticed on the photo taking the sampling, the E. coli, have you thought of possibly taking some sampling? That's sort of just below the bridge, and there's 2 branches coming on the left and right hand side. And I wondered, we thought of possibly taking some sampling a bit further up each of those 2 branches to try and pin down where the human E. coli, because that's the dangerous one in my opinion.
Yeah.
Would it be very hard to do that?
No, I believe they do have multiple sampling areas as well. It's not just a single source, but I can double check with the team and give them that suggestion if that hasn't done. But I believe it's not just the one site.
As well?
Yeah, Shanta, just on that. So if we've gone over the exceedance, so does that start again for 5 more years?
It does, yeah.
And that happens every year. So like if we are okay next year, we're still going to go through that 4-year period.
4 years, yeah. So we were actually at the 5th year of no.
Really cheers me off that 50
For that tiny amount.
Yeah.
What's the really cost though?
I mean, and it's one of our cheaper programs. The most expensive part is the capital outlay for the machine, and we've already got the machines. So yeah, continuing monitoring isn't too expensive. But I would say as well, the national policy statement for air quality, they have considered moving that threshold to the 2.5, and they kind of haven't been paying too much attention to it because of the focus on fresh water. But I'd say once they work through the RMA and the fresh water, they might start looking at the air quality again. And if they go down to 2.5, then we potentially will have to do more monitoring, not just in Reefton, but in Whakataka and Westport and Grey as well.
Could that be one bad chimney or something? If you know what I mean, yeah.
They asked us that in Reefton as well. They were like, whose house do we need to scan out? We are not supporting that. It's really hard to tell. It's also where we're reading the worst air quality doesn't necessarily mean that source is coming from that direct area. The climatic conditions can cause the air quality to be worse in areas that aren't the source. So it is actually really complicated to find that out. It's unlikely that it's one. Yeah, very unlikely.
To the chair, I went to the one card speech and found it really enlightening. So did a lot of people. They thought it was a great show, and I think it's a valuable exercise worth repeating. But, probably bigger numbers next time because a lot of people step back and think, well, that's quite good. And it was amazing how the hotspots tended to come in certain areas that if you happen to be monitoring in that particular place, it could skew the overall quite good result of the overall town. Yeah.
Links bad and Reefton anyway.
Yes, and that impacts it quite a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where you get the bad ones, there's no wind.
And there was an article and stuff which they contacted us about in regards to whether we support moving to a 2.5, and I was interested in reading that MFE mentioned that for New Zealand a 2.5 threshold doesn't make sense because of the coastal nature and the proportion of sea salt. But what's interesting is we have found in our source apportionment studies is that in the 2.5 it's a better read of anthropogenic sources. We're seeing less sea salt in those and more sea salt in the PM10 because of the coarseness of the particles. So I'm not sure.
What about general dust?
Yeah, so in our source apportionment, we look at that as well. Dirt, sea salt, those general dust, but it only accounted for a really small proportion. Sea salt was the most. And we'll be doing that in grey maps as well. So it'll be interesting to see and compare those two sites.
Well, it's not a question, Chair, for Shanti, but more so just a couple of comments. You know, I just want to congratulate you and the team for implementing those site safety. I know you've been doing that continuously, but that's just more improvement to make sure, you know, our staff come home safe. And I just, you know, thank you also for the 3 new rainfall gauges being installed in the upper boiler catchment. You know, that's just an excellent initiative, and making sure that our communities have got plenty of early warning prior to the floods. But hey, just another excellent report, and like Chris said, you know, I attended a couple of the road shows, and you know, really super, and the people that were there, even though they were low numbers, they really enjoyed it. So thanks very much. I'm sure there's enough of this media report here to keep the paper going for quite a while, you know, and good stories here, you know, good news stories. Shows the value that the environmental team do for our community. Thank you.
Other comments?
So,
Can I just make a comment that the monitoring, you know, is the first part of discovering, you know, what the issues are, but it doesn't actually solve anything in itself. So, you know, the monitoring of the estuaries and the Orowaiti, there's still work to do here. The first thing we have to do is monitor, find out what's going on. Is there anthropogenic sources, i.e., you know, human waste, rally, and things like that. And then the next phase of this work is across the organisation, especially with, you know, consents compliance and policy and that sort of thing, is now to look at what this is saying to us and then start thinking, what do we need to do? And it's not always just a regulatory lever we need to pull here. Sometimes, you know, we can work with, say, the catchment groups, you know, and in a non-regulatory way, like the dairy farms, that sort of thing, like what we're doing. There could be a regulatory, but there could be, you know, an upgrade to plants and all those sorts of things that actually, you know, will and could, in a good measure, fix that issue. So just want to really say that, you know, that's that's a good first intro into some in-depth water quality
It sets up the
issues.
baseline
It sets up the baseline. We can keep on measuring, but the issue is, what do we do about it? And that goes into our land and water plan, which starts in 2027 under the new government direction around what we do about that. Thanks.
Righto. So the recommendation is to receive the report, note the ongoing E. coli contamination in the Orawati Lagoon, and actions by staff to support the Buller District Council with cross-connection improvements, support farmers with improved practices to reduce E. coli runoff, and explore potential septic tank issues within the catchment. Note the interim air quality results in Greymouth. Staff actions are to continue monitoring Greymouth to obtain a wider database, undertake source-appointed studies to better understand particulate sources, and note the improvement work, the early flood warning function, and staff actions to prioritise upgrades to telemetry and radio networks, ensuring redundancy and reliability to critical flood sites. We've got a mover for that.
Happy to move.
Peter, secondly, Chris.
Oh, thank you all. That's support for this council. So I just wanted to say a quick thank you to all of you. It's been really great working with you, and I'm excited to work with you next year. Some of you guys get in. It's been, really appreciate the direction and general support. It's been a great 3 years.
My favourite.
Yeah, my favourite too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shadi.
Okay.
Sorry about that. So we forgot the chair's report. So my report basically is just to thank the Oregon councillors, Francois and Jackie, for putting up with us for the last triennium and the triennium before that, and thank all the staff. And if I don't get re-elected, at least I feel happy in the fact that the council's in a lot better shape now than when I arrived. And that's thanks to all the staff and all the new staff, to Daryl, you councillors as well. So thanks for that. Righto, we'll move on. I'll move the peers report. Mark, second, Jackie. Planning and the TTP report. The recommendations to receive the report. Will you move it? Peter? Second,
Move. Yep.
Peter. Two Peters. No.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. GM of Regulatory Policy. For this report, the key updates, we'll start with the resource management consenting and other systems changes as part of the RMA reforms. There's actually little impact to the way that we'll be working. As a reminder that we need to consider scale and significance when we're seeking information, especially around we're seeking more information after an application has come in, but also taking that into account when applications being made. So it's just a reminder to councils, only ask for the information they need to make a decision. The amendment also introduces some changes to consents process, and now applicants must disclose their compliance history and serious misconduct around those issues, and they can be taken into account, and there can be refusal. That'd be a very special case, but if someone's an ongoing naughty person, then the application is refused. Council needs to relate. We need to change some work on our database reporting on that, so that we can make sure that people can get their compliance history as part of the application, but also that we can check that. So there's some work that we're doing with CME systems to make sure we have those databases and compliance histories in an area that we can get them easily. And so we just have some training underway for the other minor changes through the Act, and that will improve the reforms. In terms of the resource management reform, government paper outlines the Planning Act and the Natural Environment Act, which you'll probably be aware of. They're changing the sustainable management, and basically the RMA is being split into two. They'll be running in parallel process, feeding into the same process at the end. There will be a new planning tribunal proposed for faster, lower cost dispute resolution. We'll see if that comes about. And there may be raised thresholds for managing adverse effects and relaxing SN. There'll be fewer consent activity classes and a greater use of permitted activities. And the national directions to limit the number of objectives and policies to try and make planning simple for people to understand.
We just stop there for a minute. Anyone got any questions to that? This is quite a big topic. Anyone's got any questions on the way through? Feel free to put your hand up. I've just got one question about that. If you're going to take people's bad history into account for getting consents, are you also going to take in their good history?
Well, yeah, it
Well,
could be
there's
done.
got to be a pro rata thing, like a lot of
the-
people that.
That's a good point.
A long history.
So can I make a comment, Mr. Chairman? So it's not what we want to do.
Yeah.
It's what the government is saying they want to do,
Yeah.
right? So as these bills work through and they go to select committee, there is an opportunity for submission,
Right.
right? So that's your opportunity with the new council, obviously, to actually submit on any issues that you see with it, and that could be one of them.
Right. I'm just thinking like the dairy farmers. Dairy farmers think that you shouldn't have to feel frightened over the applications.
No, you shouldn't feel frightened. It's actually only a very minor change. So if you're coming in to do an application for the same activity,
Yeah.
that history can already be taken. What it is part of the application process, you must clear it up front. And it's for a natural person as opposed to a company, that's for the last 7 years. So after 7 years, your the history is reset. And it's only if there's abatement notices or convictions under the Act. So it's quite serious stuff. But it's just making sure that prior to this, if a new activity came in, it's something that couldn't be considered by council. So if you had a bad operator, they can keep applying for resource consent, and that history can be.
Let's hope the criminal courts start doing that as well, then, because when you go for something like that, they can't take in that previous history. You've got to change that. That's something that should be changed.
One question, so you're saying it's got a reset after 7 years, is that correct?
For a natural person.
Just on that, for clarity again, the people that may be the ones we're trying to avoid and repeating, if you go back in the history, and a lot of these entities have changed company names. So if I apply as a Foursquare application, but my previous name and fence is under another name, that doesn't count, or you just do it under the one?
So the company history carries on going. That's a very good question and point, and we'll have to think about how we're going to track that back. But it probably does come down to the entity on the legal, in which case it could keep setting up a new company. But it's something that we will have that information anyway, and the intent is clearly to take that into account. This would be like. Really, all this is about is that we can take it into account when we're setting things like durations or the amounts of monitoring we need, perhaps bonds. Is this person put on break or not? And we get that information up front as part of the application. In terms of a refusal, straight out refusal, that's hardly ever going to happen. But that would be the case that if we had a company that was going through the courts and was continuing to not perform as we expect, then there would be grounds that we could straight out refuse consent. It can be outside of just adverse effect. It can actually be you're a bad operator. But the case of that would be very, very slim.
Council staff would have to be mindful. So old wine in a new bottle. You'd have to know a bit of the history of the party.
Mr. Chairman, could I just, I think, and Matt could just confirm that the words in the material we've got so far refers to natural person.
Yeah,
is that right?
Oh, there's two clauses. So one natural person, one's for.
Okay, so financial person and natural person, and I think Councillor Ewan, that actually speaks to your point. Because when you trace back a natural person, it goes to that person, not what company name that person has assumed at the time.
So there's the risk, isn't it? A little bit.
There is a risk, but we know where the consents are. We know the size. We do have the companies register, which tracks fairly well.
See the shareholders, aren't you?
What about their wives and children?
That's the key, eh?
That's why they have big families.
Yeah.
Okay. Peter, you want to say something?
Oh, yeah, it was just a question, Matt, you know, one of the items in there was, considering allowing generally novel issues at a local level to be given adequate consideration on a case-by-case basis, potentially maintaining local decision-making over things that matter. Now, in the TPP plan, when it moved the other day, it brought in mineral extraction zones, which is quite out there, you know, and I guess that may be challenged by some groups, but is that what that's referring to?
This is coming into the fact that under the current proposal, so looking to centralise the objective setting at a central level. This is saying that for activities which are novel or relate to a specific area, that the control would actually still be of the local communities.
I guess that's what that's saying too, you know, at a local level, you know, you could, you know, generally novel issues at a local level be given adequate consideration case by case. So I'm thinking, you know, some of the items in the TPP plan, we brought in, you know, that hopefully will then. The second one was, you know, reduce the discretion with the number of policies and regional and district plans via policy direction at a national level. And it's just a comment, that was one of the things that Darryl and I went to Wellington for, to speak to Parliamentary Under Secretary Simon Court, and we discussed the new resource management legislation, and that when it becomes law, that it needs to immediately override the provisions of the regional policy statement, because, you know, if the government are changing that legislation, we don't want to be hung up in the regional policy statement being, you know, overriding that. So that was something that's been made clear to not only the Parliamentary Under Secretary who's doing a lot of this work, but to various ministers we've spoken to. So government change the regulations, it should just knock out the rules that we're working by on our national policy statement, our regional policy statement. Probably not that there.
Yeah. Oh, look, I will, thank you. So in the past, there has been some instances from previous governments on both sides where they've clearly got an intent to pass national instruments which guide, you know, what we do with our documents, both RPS and the regional plans, let alone the district plans. And at the moment, under the Resource Management Act, there's a section 55 that says that you can, without any formality, given those national directions, change your plans, which means you avoid, and the planners in the room will appreciate this, the Schedule 1 process of consultation, etc., given that the government clearly wants to achieve that national direction. So the Chair and I have been advocating very strongly, and I think we've been heard, that if there is a big raft of national direction, don't put that onus on a Schedule 1 process. Use a Section 55 type approach and make it automatically happen across the country without formality. And that is efficient legislation in our view. Thanks.
And they have done it for MBS. Yeah.
Can it be retrospective? So an existing license. Prior to the national policy statement coming, will change it.
Usually changes to legislation like this will, the existing resource consents are there. It's when new coming in, or there may be direction to review those consents. But usually there's grandfather clauses, and maybe that they can't continue past their expiry. But yeah, in most cases, the authorisations that are there at the moment remain to be.
Just a question on the mineral extraction zones and the new plan. Does that going to override with the event of state coal reserves being dejected from legislation? Because state coal reserves presently cover vast area of the Bulla, Grey District, and that by legislation is a state coal reserve. they're gonna be scrapped.
Yeah, I can answer that. It would be wrong to think that one piece of legislation trumps the other. It doesn't. They have validity and they sit with each other. And so there is no, in law, that what you're talking about there, the state coal stuff, doesn't trump what we're doing in the TTPP. The TTPP is what guides. And there's many instances like that in terms of different pieces of legislation. Some of it's quite aged now, probably like that one. But one piece of leg doesn't trump the other.
Any questions on it? You want to carry on with that?
Sure. Ti Uru.
Oh, hang on,
Oh, sorry.
I was gonna, you know, the grandfather rights, well, when, there's no real consent for them, so how long?
The grandfathering would be the grandfathering of the current resource consents, if that makes sense. So normally when a bit of legislation comes in, if you have a resource consent, if a bit of legislation comes in, often it has a grandfathering clause that says that the existing authorizations can continue
Until they're expired.
until they expire or something else changes.
And then they have to.
So we'll have an expiry.
But, yeah, see that before the RMA, they called, if you had a stock bank or something that was built, and they say that's under grandfather rights, there's actually no expiry date on.
Yeah, there's continuing land use rights under the RMA. And so it depends on the new legislation. And but a lot of that stuff is an authorization for change of land, and that often has no expiry. It's still a very unknown space.
Yeah, that's right.
It's unlikely that they'd be trying to alter those. I wouldn't expect.
Is that the same as Victoria?
No, councillors, if I could just comment here. We need to wait for the to come through, so I think we're shadow boxing a bit here.
Yeah.
But what I will say is this, is that yes, a lot of some of the land use provisions are grandfathered, but in the history of the Resource Management Act and even before under the Water and Soil Conservation Act, activities in and around water, which is dam, divert, discharge and take, would in perpetuity. Yeah. And that's probably going to continue.
So basically, this is work in progress.
Yeah.
This is definitely a work in progress.
Because that's sort of what, like the catchment board stuff was sort of before the RMA, wasn't it? A lot of them stopped that sort of built.
Yeah, but we're talking about land use consents there, councillor, in terms of the actual, the bank. I make the differentiation between, discharges and takes.
Yeah, it's already set out under the current RMA, where other activities that aren't land use can only go for a maximum of 35 years. Tiuru Kahika, which is the combined councils organisation, has put together some submissions to MFE regarding the changes, and so we're keeping the loop with the organisation. But to reiterate, it is a work in progress, and we quite know where things go for several months here. The Water Services legislation. So Local Government Water Services Act has come in. That was came in August. All councils are providing water services that are providing water services now. Water service providers with requirements to ring fence water revenues, publish transparent financial performance reporting, prepare stormwater risk plans, and periodic water delivery plan. We have Martha Arawai will continue to oversee public health and environmental performance with more transparent compliance approaches. New national engineering design standards and performance standards for wastewater and stormwater have been set to be set to streamline structural delivery.
So just a question there, is that really going to affect us, Darryl?
So, Mr. Chairman, we include this to Resource Management Committee today for your information. This is this is for the district councils in their role as the Three Waters entities.
Yeah.
However, yes, it will affect us because some of this legislation will have an effect on consenting, particularly with wastewater and the plants and things, and there'll be a fuller report coming through on that to the new council.
Yeah, and there's quite a bit around the wastewater standards, as to what is acceptable. And it's held up. Yeah, altered.
So that's it.
No, it's mainly the municipal treatment.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
Articulation.
Yep, sorry, Matt, carry on.
Transport and total mobility, digital cards are now implemented. Paper chips expired in September, 30 September. And the regional transport committee has been set up and scheduled for 11 November this year, and the date's been set for next year. And staff are preparing induction material for the committee on that.
I'll just ask one question there, Matt, as you're going through. How did that transition go? Does it all gone smoothly, the transport side of it? Chits?
As smoothly as they could have been. Yeah,
Good answer.
yeah. But with that now, so we've got all the companies on them. We've got the last small handful of cards to get out, but it's for there now. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
And the last item I have on here is the TTPP. So the panel recommendations was received. The committee held meeting held over the 18th to the 20th of September. The committee decided to accept the recommendations of the hearing panel. 2 changes were adopted to ecosystems and indigenous biodiversity policy 1. It's the ECOP1, and it's to extend the date for identifying SNAs and to remove the requirement for Grey District to undertake further SNA identification. And the decisions version of the TTPP will be publicly notified on the 10th of October.
So just a comment through there, the extending the date of the SNAs, that is for Buller and Westland, was out till the 31st of December 2030. So that gives the term of central government plus one more term really to get the RMA reforms sorted out. So it'll actually show up in the next 5 years whether what they're going to do and get clarity about future SNAs. So we hope the government will have that decision made, and that gives that, like, extending that time for those councils to do that. And the reasoning for the committee to not require Grey District to undertake further SNA evaluation was because Grey District had already gone through a long and expensive exercise some 15 to 18 years ago, or it was around 18 years ago, identifying SNAs in the Grey District. So the commissioners had brought that in because of the provisions of the regional policy statement, but the committee decided they would take that out and gave the reasoning around that. So that was a good out. Stay it on to your
Comments?
say cover it, Francois.
Yep.
Everyone happy with that?
So just one question, just an overview. RMA reform, when's the expected final draft?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so the government is signalling the release of draft bills around November, December. We'll see.
Yeah.
But they also have signalled that they want to get it through the 3 readings in the House.
Yep.
And they want it adopted and before election next October. Right. So that's what they're working to. But I just want to also say that what usually happens with big pieces of ledge like this, while they might be have an aspiration to adopt it before election, and just so that they do, there's usually transitional procedures with the ledge, which means there could be up to a year or 2 or even 3 years of it progressively taking effect after that.
So potentially the council for the next triennium would probably see something mid-year.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
That was all submission style. That's still, yeah. A lot of work next year.
Yeah, it's ambitious targets.
Righto, general business.
Do you want to move it?
That's been moved. Yeah. General business? No general business? Oh, check.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of the Runanga, McCarfield, like to thank everyone for their hard work, collaboration, patience and tolerance. And I think we've made some great inroads, and we'd also like to wish everyone the best of luck. And Peter, you're leaving us to greener pastures, we hope. So thank you very much for all your hard work too.
Jackie.
All right.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thanks, Jackie. All right. Do you want to go in public excluded now, or do you want to do the other one first? Excluded, okay. So your recommendation is to move to public excluded. Reasons? Yeah. Welcome back to the public meeting. The while we're away, we move that the commissioner to appoint the Commissioner Mark Geddes to hear and determine the application RC 2024-0164. It was moved and seconded, so I'm not sure when that was going to take place. Any idea when that take place? Probably somebody up in London. Oh, 3rd of November 2025. No, hearing will be here with the council chambers. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for your patience, and might see you again.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Brett. And they're moving at 10:20. Okay, welcome everybody to our meeting of council on the 7th of October 2025. This is the last meeting of council for the this triennium. I just note online, welcome those all online. I notice we've got our auditor, Stuart Much. Welcome, Stuart. Our Risk and Assurance Independent Chair, Graham McGlynn, and our Financial Management Accountant, Fiona Ferrer. So welcome, and also welcome to staff and members of the public that are joining us online today. Item 2, I'll call for apologies, and I see we've got an apology for Councillor Birchfield. Is there any other apologies? Someone like to move? Mark McIntyre's moved. Councillor Cummins second. All in favour say aye. It's carried. Item 3 is declaration of interest, and I would like to point out that I've got a conflict on the Punakaiki Rating District meeting, which is on item 8.2. So I will run the thing, but I will not vote on that. And I've also got one in the public excluded, which I will ask on item 13.2, which I'll ask Deputy Chair Cummins to actually run that meeting. Any other declarations of interest today? No other declarations of interest. Right. Public forum, petitions and deputations. We don't have any. So we'll move on to item 5, which is the confirmation of the minutes of the 2nd of September 2025. Are there any corrections to those minutes? Well, the recommendation is that council resolve to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 2nd of September 2025 and that they are a true and correct record. Do I have a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Cummins, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. All in favour say aye. 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 That's carried. Action list. It's on page 6, and it's on page 12. And we have two actions there, both of which are complete. So, and I'm pleased to advise that there's no ongoing actions on the list, and move that council. I'm happy to move that council receive the actions list and the information noted. Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Ewan. All in favour say aye.
That's carried. Item 7, Chair's report. And this will be my final Chair's report for the triennium. So our annual report for 2024-25 is a high note for the current council to be going out on. This is the first time in years that the West Coast Regional Council has published its annual report well before the statutory deadline. The report shows council has delivered on the significant majority of its commitments to the community, has done so within the agreed financial envelope with some variations due to external factors. Our auditor presented to the audit findings to the Risk and Assurance Committee last week. Our auditor commented on council's progressive maturity over the past financial year and improvement on matters raised last year. The auditors praised the work done on valuing flood control assets, and as we know last year, were concerned that not enough work had been done in this field. This year, the auditors said the work council had undertaken over the past financial year to assess the structures meant it now was in a much better position with detailed, up-to-date knowledge. Our Risk and Assurance Chair, Independent Chair Graham McGlynn, agreed and noted that our council's understanding with stock banks was probably the best he had seen in many years of working with local councils, and congratulated staff on their work. Councils across the country were under the pump to meet the audited deadline of 31st of October, with many not getting there across the line. And Graham noted this was really positive for our council to have its report ready well within time. I'd like to thank Daryl, Stewart, Peter Miller, and all the staff concerned for the effort put in and the quality of the annual report we're going to have today. One correction we have to include in our accounts is the funding council received from the NZTA in the 2021-2022 year. If we had not had to make this correction, we would have recorded a small surplus in this report. Looking back at the 2021 and 2022 year, the report shows a significant loss of staff, 12% of the total full-time equivalent jobs, meaning council lost significant institutional knowledge, and is yet another example of why we've needed to rebuild staff numbers and expertise. Currently, we have 105 full-time equivalent staff members, noting many of those positions are in the commercial business team, which is expected to return a surplus to council to keep our rate increases lower than they otherwise would be. This year's annual report shows a reduction in contractor and consultant costs, and this will continue to reduce further within the corporate services and the wrap-up of the Titai Opetini One District Plan. With regard to the TPP plan, this is a real milestone for our region and the country. Government RMA reforms will require a single district plan for each region, so the coast is ahead of the game. The plan delivers consistency and clarity for everyone across the coast, streamlines planning rules, and makes it easier for people to understand and engage with the planning process. In July, when Minister responsible for RNA reform, Chris Bishop, announced the government's intention to pass legislation to direct local government to halt work on district and regional policy statements, he made it abundantly clear that work on plans should only be halted when hearings on plans had not yet commenced. The Minister's announcement did not apply to the TPP as hearings were finished and the commissions were in deliberation stages and writing their recommendation. Our council was following central government advice, and it is disappointing to see the reform group contradicting what the Minister has clearly spelt out and falsely blaming our council when decision-making on the TPP was made by the Committee of 11, represented by elected members from all councils and our iwi partners. As this is my last Chair's report, I wish to take the opportunity to thank those councillors who have worked so hard to get council back on track, and acknowledge late Councillor Frank Dooley for his input into identifying what needed sorting and his financial expertise. To Daryl and all staff, my thanks go to you for all your commitment to the organisation and your community. This organisation is like a well of well, and is far cry from when I first came into the position of chair. Finally, I sadly farewell Peter Miller. Peter, you've brought a professional touch to council, and the work on council's finance is appreciated. Thank you again for your valued input. It's the Chair's report. Someone like to move that's received? Mark McIntyre, thank you. Brett, thank you very much. Item 8.1, it's proposed amendments to procurement standard operating procedure. Stuart.
Back in July, we actually and also agreed to a revised procurement policy and associated with that a standard operating procedure and process map. Now we, as you appreciate at the time, we actually ran that out as a ready, fire, aim approach. We knew we were going in the right direction, but there may have been some things that we needed to tweak. So one of the things that I've actually proposed and as a result of rolling out this procurement policy is to make it more efficient and that's more efficient for everybody, including council. What there was a lack of clarity as to when staff needed to re-engage with council after you'd already approved a procurement plan. What I'm proposing in this change, and while this is a large process map, the end bit we're really talking about is this, I'm going to call it green box down the bottom. And that is just to give some real clarity and consistency in our approach with engaging with council. The goal of this is to maximize efficiency, make sure that the procurements we actually process are rapid and not tied up in any level of bureaucracy needing to come back to council for further iteration. So what I'm recommending, Mr. Chair, is that we add some wording into the procurement process to give clarity for everybody. And that means that once council has agreed a procurement plan, should all parts of that procurement plan continue as were, and the costs associated with the tender be less or equal to, then there doesn't need to be a re-engagement. So that just smooths the process through. Mr. Chair.
Right, discussions on that item, councillors. Any questions or councillor Cole?
Mine's just a philosophical question and not,
Yep.
I'm not fully corrected. The ready, fire, aim principle, is that a philosophical reason instead of ready, aim, fire? It's because you want to speed the process up. Shooting, it's usually ready, fire, but ready, fire, aim is to speed give the impression or give the philosophical reason for speeding the process up.
Absolutely correct, councillor.
Okay.
What we don't want to do is tie ourselves up and try and get it 100% perfect.
Yeah.
When actually we need to make change. We know our previous procurement process wasn't good enough. But if we spend an infinite amount of time dotting the I's and crossing the T's, we actually miss the big picture. So you're absolutely correct. It's
Consultation with the tenderers, get their ideas.
the change or
Yeah, really fire aim.
I know that, forgive me, councillor, that's just the rollout of this process. Policy for us. And we've committed to come back to council early next year, to actually say this is what we've learned, and this is the further amendments. This is just one that we think we could smooth the process for everybody.
What else we need to make?
No, I personally think it's a good thing, and that means if the supplier's price is under the budget, that'll be passed, but if it's over, it has to come back to council again. So that's a good move. Any further comments or questions? Right, I'll move the recommendation and 1, receive the report, 2, approve the proposed amendment to the procurement standard operating procedure. Move for that, councillor Cole, seconded by councillor Cummings. All in favour say aye. Against, that's carried. Right, next item on the agenda. That is annual 8.2, rate setting for the Punakaiki Special Rating District. That's on page 17 of our papers. I've declared on this, but
Councillors, when we actually went to set our rates as per the annual plan, we recognised there'd been a transcription error, not in the rates, they are correct, but in the labels we'd associated with those. So we have taken a very I dotting and T crossing on this one approach because it's a legal requirement to actually get the labels correct. So we sought some legal advice on what we need to do, and the legal advice is that as per set out in these recommendations,
we need to revoke that part of the current rate resolution only as applies to the special rating district. And then agree to a change in the labels. Then in effect, it's just moving the labels around. You can see that in the attachment. And then to resolve the correct rate. Now, what we are doing with this to make sure that everything is fair and equal to all of our community is just changing the dates that the Punakaiki, those in the Punakaiki special rating area who pay their it's a simple fix. And this is just to make sure that we are dotting I's and crossing T's on this particular and very important element of our annual plan. Sure, Mr. Chair.
So I'll move item one, I'll ask for someone to move item one, to receive the report, then we'll open up for discussion. So I can have a move of that. Councillor Ewan, Councillor Cummings second, all in favour, say aye. Carried. Open up for questions or discussion to Stuart.
Chair, just on page 20. Could you just explain to me, Part AR, starting with million capital value, and the rating differential is 1, but the calculated yield is 27,000. I was sort of multiplying that, it should only be about 800. Is that a factor of 1? Does that include something else that I'm not?
So the factor is the factor that we've shown in the annual plan. There is a subsequent behind the scenes in the computer system factor calculation. The figures here are the correct figures. We've had to double check.
So basically you find that that is the campground, and the campground in the past has always paid 70% flow. And so that's basically where that comes from.
So the differential shouldn't be 1, should it?
I can't do the maths, unfortunately. That's how the system shows it, and how it calculates behind the system. We've revalidated all these figures. The figures are absolutely spot on correct.
Basically just what comes out of authority from the point of view of the rate setting process.
Because I get a 00814 pretty much consistently for 1.65, 0.6, 0.3, but on that last one, so it's about 0.0268, which is there a lump something, or does that include the NZTA's contribution, or does it?
That doesn't include NZTA.
It does.
Forgive me, Councillor, it's a system generated factor.
Does it round it off to 1, does it?
To be honest, I don't have access to that site. I do have access to the yield, and I do have access to the total yield, and those figures have been very carefully gone through to make sure there is no errors, and they're not there 100% accurate.
Is the camping ground still owned by the district council or the district?
Any further questions, Stuart? Comments? If not, I'll put the other parts of the recommendation. That's 2. Note the performance report in the draft. Hang on. Sorry, yep, we've got it. 2, revoke the part of the current rates resolution as applies only to the Punakaiki Special Rating District. 3, agree that to the label correction on the rating funding impact statement for the Punakaiki Special Rating District. 4, resolve to set the correct rates for Punakaiki Special Rating District. 5, note that all other sections in the rating funding impact statement remain unchanged from that adopted on the 24th of June 2025. And 6, note that the ratepayers in the Punakaiki Special Rating District will have additional time to pay their first rates instalment because of the correction in the data label. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor McIntyre, second by Councillor Campbell. All in favour say aye. That's carried, and please note that I'm not voted on that. Merrill, thank you. Item 8.3 is the draft annual report 2025. Stuart.
Right, Mr. Chair. I wonder if it's possible, Mr. Chair, to pass over to Twitter and our Chair of Risk and Assurance.
Certainly. Again, Stuart. Graham.
Thank you.
Stuart, would you, or Graham, sorry, while you're speaking, Graham, would you like to make any comments prior to opening up the discussion?
Thank you. We had a very full discussion on the annual report at the Audit and Risk Committee last week, and the changes since then have been really of typographical nature, nothing of any real substance. Most of you were present at the Audit and Risk Committee meeting, so I don't propose to restate this. Since then, we have received the auditor's letter of representation that the council needs to sign, representing various matters to the auditors. I've reviewed that letter and it's very standard and in line with my expectations, and I don't see any issues within that. So on that basis, I'm happy to recommend, as chair of the Audit and Risk Committee, that the council proceeds with the adoption process.
Right, so will you be happy then, Graham, to move items 1 to 4 before we adopt, and then we'll open it up for discussions and questions?
Chair, I'm not sure as Audit and Risk Chair whether I've got the ability to do so.
No. Okay. So, what I'll do, I'll ask someone to move 1 to 4. And that was 1 to 4. Yep. Thanks, Brett. Seconded by Councillor Campbell. And now we'll all in favour? All right. Yep. Now I'll open up for discussions and questions before we go to the final adoption.
Sorry.
And
Could we seek some
comment from
Stuart March from EY? Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, members. Look, I don't really have anything further to add to the discussion we had last week at the audit committee. As Graham has reflected, that was an effective discussion that we had at that time. We are in a position that we will be able to issue our audit report upon adoption of the annual report and also the summary annual report, which is included, I believe, in the papers. We will just work with management as they publish those documents to your website during the course of this week. So, but we're in a position that no further substantive matters need to be attended to. So, if you approve the annual report and sign the letter of representation, we will be in a position to issue our audit report. Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart. Thank you.
Sure. Mr. Chair, we'll just briefly turn to the change log, which I've tabled for as has been pointed by Chair of Insurance, Graham. A lot of these matters are just typographical. In effect, what they've done is a really close review of our annual report compared to the annual report, make sure all the wording, correct wording in there. And I've picked up a couple of which. So I've also, Councillor, as you'll note, measure 18, so number 9 and 10 are the matters you raised, Councillor Cole, last week, and so I've changed those matters. As a result of the session we had last week, got some feedback from my colleagues that I should have reflected better at the joint committee or the rating district meetings title. So I've corrected those. That's 11, 12, 13. We continue to work with Stuart and his team to actually make sure and that talks to 14 and 15. And then just yesterday, I noted there were a little bit of text that had fallen off one of the notes in note 20. So I've corrected and added all of that. That was in my final I dotting and T crossing approach. Right, Mr. Chair, I note that I didn't have a recommendation in here that allows delegation from yourself to the Chief Executive to make some final formatting changes. With respect, I wonder if it's possible to add that in as an additional recommendation. And the reason why I would seek that is, and this is only a minor thing, but it's about representing council and councillors correctly. I've noticed that the rear covers around the round. Delegation questions.
So there's a delegation from the chair and chief executive to make minor changes.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Right. So questions of Stuart generally on the draft annual report or any comments? Councillor Ewan.
Yeah, I just congratulate everyone involved in the process. It's been a monumental task to get where we've got from where we came from. It's a credit to everyone involved.
Thank you. Agree with that. So, okay, if there's no further comments or questions, item 5 is adopt the council resolve to adopt the draft annual report 2025 and adopt the draft summary annual report for the year 2025, and 7, delegate the chair and chief executive to make minor changes.
Move that.
Move that. That's Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Cummings. All in favour say aye. That's carried. Thank you very much, Stuart, and everyone, for the good work here. Next item on the agenda is the valedictory speech. So I thought I would reflect on the last 3 years. And when I was asked to stand for council 3 years ago, my intention had been to slowly move into retirement, but I thought 3 years was not long, so I signed the nomination form. Shortly after, I got cold feet and started listening to my wife Helen, what she was saying. Holidays, more time for the grandchildren, and getting those jobs around home completed. A close friend called around and offered to help put up some hoardings, but I told him I'd changed my mind and were not that concerned if I didn't get elected. On election day, I received a call from the previous chief executive, Heather Maven, that I was duly elected. There were no celebrations that evening. And I told Helen that probably there would not be too many meetings and 3 years would just fly. At the inaugural meeting, I was elected as deputy chair, and prior to the next meeting, the chair rang and said I would have to step up, and that he was taking time off, and that I was thrown in the deep end and were acting chair for the next 3 months, and quickly had to learn the ropes in chairing a meeting. This was quite a learning curve for me, as sitting around as a councillor for the previous 15 years was significantly different from having to run the meetings and the associated duties of being acting chair. I quickly made a working relationship with the chief executive, Heather, and was shocked to hear that the issues council faced, not only financially, but reputationally, with central government. I asked Heather how many times we would meet a week, and she said the previous chair had only never met between meetings. And I said, well, that's not going to happen, and we have to meet more regularly. So Heather then advised that our government resilience funding for our flood protection works for our major towns was at serious risk of being withdrawn. So the first job was to get on the phone and rebuild trust with government officials. The next major culture shock for me was attending the special rating district meetings and fielding abuse, as much as these rating districts had not had an annual meeting for some 3 years and had little or no financial information. I did not think I'd apologise so many times in my life for an issue which was not my making. Heather then advised she was resigning, and Councillor Cummings, Ewan and myself had to ask she remained until we secured a replacement chief executive. At that time, the council lost almost all its corporate services team and had to rely on consultants at large corporates at a huge cost to fill its statutory financial obligations. Staff numbers were low and dropping, and council was struggling to operate on many fronts. I remember the chief executive's PA was also the minute secretary, and the council agendas were skimpy and had no page numbers. Everyone seemed to be struggling, and I remember Frank Dooley saying to me at the time, we have a huge job on our hands to get the ship back on course. In February, I was voted in as chair, and the real work got underway to rebuild the organisation. Our chief executive, Darryl Liu, was employed over the next months, and a plan was set up to get the executive leadership team up to full speed and council functions back in-house, and council systems, policies, plans and procedures all reviewed. Not long after Darryl started, we had the race to bark, which proved how broken the corporate services function of council was. Councillors made a commitment to work hard to get things sorted, and as some council meetings were taking 8 to 9 hours to get through the workload, a decision was made to split the various committee meetings, and this then involved fortnightly meetings, which we still have today, to get through the huge amount of work. Looking back on the last 3 years, I believe the public would have no idea on the massive change that has happened within council. The structure of council has rebuilt on all fronts. Our corporate services team is in great shape. Our catchment management team have achieved wonders in getting the government's subsidised flood protection schemes for Greymouth and Hokitika completed with the current available funding. France is well advanced and Westport is well underway with physical works complete at McKinnis and tenders awarded for other parts of the project. Our rating district meetings are back on track and finances and assessments of structures are up to speed. Our environmental service, science and hydrology teams have been undertaking essential works for our community, and the State and the Environment Roadshow was first class, showcasing the work we do to keep our environment and our community safe. The VCS team have done well with their contracts and built a good reputation. Civil Defence team have moved significantly over the past 3 years and are well respected, trained and ready should any event happen. Our regulatory and policy team have had a huge workload and are performing well, as are the IT team rebuilding and protecting our systems. There are so many working in council who I've not mentioned who are part of the team that keep council functioning on a daily basis. I'm pleased that financially council's investment fund has reached 15 million and the dividends from this will help reduce rates in the future. I'm also proud that council has made a plan to return to an operating surplus in year 4 of our long-term plan. I'm also proud that we have an excellent working relationship with our mayors, chairs and iwi group, and this strong one voice puts us in great stead with the government for both the minerals royalty proposal and the regional deal proposal. I believe we're on the cusp of a financial windfall if we stick to the plan, and this will be a huge benefit to our ratepayers and communities. However, this opportunity could be lost if trust is lost with the government and working as one voice and one team is broken. Council is no different to a locomotive that's been derailed. It takes time, money and a huge effort to get it back on the tracks. I'm proud of the work that's been achieved in the last 3 years. It's been a huge team effort. There's so many people I'd like to think personally that would take too long. So finally, I'd like to thank the councillors that have made change possible, including the late councillor and colleague Frank Dooley. I cannot thank Darryl and the executive leadership team and all staff that are part of this organisation. You're amazing people, and I've enjoyed getting to know most of you and wish you well for the future. I'll really miss you all, council, and you have become a daily part of my life over the last 3 years. So, very much fun. Right, could I someone recommend that receive the valedictory speech? Yep, thanks, Brad. Second by Councillor McIntyre. Right, thanks everyone.
I got the short end of the straw, Mr. Chairman, to just respond to your thing. I'd just like to say you are certainly in the deep end when you come aboard. 15 years in the Grey District Council, you know, it's footpaths, rubbish collections and parks and reserves. Well, when you got on here, our park and reserve extends for 600 kilometres and it's about 50 kilometres wide. So it's a little bit different, but the same sort of thing. Whilst your input here is invaluable. From the day one, you're quite right. We had to get on track back with government for one thing or another. And that was important for our rating districts, especially those ones that are vulnerable to flooding. And just to put it into perspective, we had something like $36 million on the table, all up between Westport down to France and all the ones in between. And it was vital that we secured that funding. I don't know how many times you went to Wellington with the LT to talk to these ministers, and I happened to be in Wellington one of these particular days on another hat that I wear, and I was up getting a cup of tea, and you walked past the window where we were all having breakfast. You were in the throng of people heading to work, and that was when public servants covered the streets of Wellington, footpath. You get on the scrum, you're gone. And the time we tried to find you, you were gone, getting up the road, and we talked about it when I got back. You boarded at a little place up some side street somewhere, it wasn't a flash hotel, and you were out in the street looking for breakfast. Well, if we had been a little bit quicker, you would have come in and had breakfast with the trustees of the West Coast Power Trust. but that wasn't to be. And getting back to this $36 million, you were successful. Your endeavours there with various ministers. And just to put that into context, I've said this before recently, there's 34,000, say, people on the West Coast. Okay. Your endeavours in Wellington to secure that funding equates to $1.5 million for every 1,000 people on the West Coast. No other province in the country would get that per capita. That's like Auckland saying they're going to get $1.7 billion for their protections. Well, they got nothing like that. They got 700 million, and they'll still be paying for it for a long time to come with all the maintenance on cliff sides and sea view places. And whilst I could go on here quite a while, I'd just like to close with a comment. I talked to a past mayor of Greymouth recently, and we went over to talk to various issues of where we've been and where we've come. And the comment was made, and Peter Haddock is probably the best mayor Greymouth never had. And the other mayor, to me, agreed with me. And that says plenty. And that says volumes for your endeavours here to get this place going. But it's a virtual bus of people that you can congratulate. And it's all the staff around here too, iwi. All those things we've done in the past. You can't do U-turns. You've got to drive the course and set the course that the government decree. And all the things we do are our core functions. I cannot think of anything that's a nice to do and we can just drop it. That can't happen. Woe was the day that we dropped the ball and someone else is appointed to do it for all West Coasters, because that would be disastrous. And in closing, you know, I've got a small gift here, Peter. The kawa tree, it seems so inadequate for what you've done in the last 3 years. And apologies on behalf of all the other councillors, the family and Helen for getting you into this position. I said I promised Helen that, you know, unless we've got some uncompleted action lists, I won't call you back. But yeah, so I wish you all the best, and it's more family time than council time. But I think you'll be recorded in looking back on this when we're all long gone. You're certainly the right person for the time. Come with the problem, come with the man, and that was certainly you. And I wish you all the best going forward. Speaking for everyone here, I only wish you well. So hop on that car of yours and go for those holidays you haven't had, and go to those places and do as you're told. Don't put your name forward, maybe for another camp, but you'll always be welcome back here for any occasion. And your contribution to the whole province is most welcome. And you're a councillor who always declared, and that was an example that others should follow. So I thank you very much for your service.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ewan. I really appreciate those kind comments. It has taken a personal toll, you know, on our family, but at the end of the day, when you stand up to be elected, you have to do the job, and a job has to be done. And I remember when I started, when Daryl first started, you know, I addressed the staff that were there, and I said, we are all part of a team, and that's the only way we will make this a success. We're all part of a team, and I believe that's the way people should be going ahead. And none of us are more important than others. We're all just part of that one team going forward. So thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate it.
Pete, just before you go, just on behalf, Peter, I just want to say on behalf of Posting and Itahu, we want to thank you for everything you've done. And I can say that this council has never been in the position it's been in until now. And that's thanks to you, Daryl, the team, and this group of councillors. So, you know, the whole election process is unsettling. From my point of view, it would have been good for some consistency. And I know you know that I want you to stay. However, understand completely why you're standing down, and appreciate that. But you've done a shitload for us, for this council in this region. I know this, and Wellington knows it as well, Peter. So thank you very much for everything you've done. And don't be too, you know, if we call on you, I hope you can at least start to know, right? So, but everything you've done is amazing, and thank you. Just on behalf of both Renan.
Thank you very much, Francois. Appreciate it.
Oh, Peter, and I'll give you this.
Oh, thanks.
Just before you do, I wonder, Mr. Chairman, Peter, just on behalf of all of the staff here at the Regional Council, I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of all. And it's been an absolute privilege to be your chief executive and all the staff to serve under you as the chair of the Regional Council, an absolute privilege. I reflected when I was thinking about today and how many times in these first couple of years that you've had to go up and down the coast and say sorry for the council's past indiscretions or lack of communication or lack of information, etc. But can I say, Peter, if you stayed with us and you went up and down the coast for the next 3 years, they'll be saying thank you.
Yeah.
Because and the last thing I want to say is just like as you say, the team. We've all been one team with the councillors and the staff here, and just like a good team has a captain, and just like Richie McCaw went out on top with the All Blacks, you're going out on top as the outgoing chair of this council with everything that we've achieved and all the good things we're now doing. So with that, on behalf of all the staff, I want to say thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Darryl. I much appreciate it. So once again, the council has only set the policy and we set the direction of the council. It's staff that do all the work, and without staff, we wouldn't have got this done. So thanks.
I was just going to say, Peter and I drove to many regional council land transport meetings in Christchurch. And Peter on one trip, I was the account for the market pigs. So they call them market pig, market pig haddock maybe, might have been a decorative market pig, but the tree is appropriate. It has some golden blooms later on, and I hope your future's all gold.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Peter. You're a private place.
You bought it from Helen for a while.
Yeah.
You pulled out.
I think you just have to close the meeting now.
No, I think we've got one item that's general business. Is there any general business going
Well, I've
forward?
only got one up, just say a few kind words, but pretty much all you said, so go well, my friend.
Thanks, Mark. I look forward to keeping in touch with you all.
Yeah.
Right. If there's no other general business, the next item is to move into public excluded. So we'll stop recording and can we have a mover and seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ewan. Seconded by Councillor Cummins. Fair enough.
Otherwise we'll leave it open.
You've just got it sorted. Bring one.
We actually against. So welcome back to everyone. Back into the we just come out of public excluded part of the meeting. Councillors discussed two items today, and that was proposed evaluation and contract award, which was let for civil, geotechnical and traffic engineering for Hokitika Stage 3. And that has been let to Davis Ogilvy. And the second one was variations for Franz Joseph Stage 1 was discussed. Excuse me. So with that, I'll declare the meeting closed, and thanks everyone for their attendance today. Done.
Thank you.
Great.